Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Council Chambers on this beautiful November 29th. This is our regular council meeting. Members of council, you have an agenda before you. Deputy Mayor for the motion, please.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. The Town Council adopt the November 29th, 2021 regular council meeting agenda as presented.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Call the question. All those in favor? Okay, that's carried. Ladies and gentlemen, moving on to public input session, and we have one registered, and it's former Councillor Russ Graff. Good afternoon, sir. Welcome.
You probably know that these things cause a guy's nose to run, so I'm not sick, I promise.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't want to be sitting here with a runny nose either. So, thanks for the opportunity, Mr. Mayor and members of council, just to be here with you, and so that you probably, some of you know that I was a pastor, so I wrote it down, so probably go pretty close to 5. And a half. No. But anyways, thanks for the opportunity to address you this afternoon. My remarks will be brief, and I'll forward a copy later for your reflection if you wish. In the communications which I received from Leanne Carpenter, of course, your executive assistant, I was called Sir and former Councillor Graff, and I've been called a lot of other things, a lot of worse things. So, but I just prefer to be called Russ. But if the decorum of this body requires that I be given a title, I would like to be called Elder Graff, because I noticed that when you were sworn in, elders got to offer a prayer, and I would be happy to do that. I noticed Elder Philip Campio, or yeah, that's his name, right? I don't know if I got the last name right, but yeah, so I was glad to see him pray a blessing, and I'd gladly do the same if I have time at the end here and your allowance. But first, let me congratulate you all on your electoral successes. I'm happy for you all, those I know well and those I know only a little and only a little bit about. I well remember the pleasure of being elected and serving this community on town council. And to the new members, especially, I know the feeling of being swamped. Is that kind of familiar? Yeah, with all the stuff, especially when they throw that corporate plan at you. I think they were easy on you guys. I think ours was twice as big, but and all the other orientation in the first weeks and months and year. And I wish you well as you continue through that time. I also offer you my understanding, and I'll give you free advice and opinions if asked. At this time, I will not advise you or the rest of council on keeping taxes down or on what I see as the potentials and priorities of this community. I will not address the advisability or not of an expensive busing system or a more economical volunteer-based transportation option. You can ask me later for all of that and more. But for now, I'll keep my advice to one thing that I hope we can all agree about, and that is I'd advise you to work hard to keep Stony Plain a good community, and maybe with blessings on your work that you can make it an even better place to live. Now, one aspect of that work is to keep the community looking good. Good governance by you will empower and encourage the town employees and public volunteers to participate in making this a clean and safe environment for people and businesses. And I must say, it's good to see that downtown project getting just about wrapped up. And, you know, I know there's much more on the agenda. Now, another aspect of keeping Stony Plain a good place is all the good work that you must do on boards and commissions as well as at council meetings. And I was on most of them, not all of them in just one 4-year term, but a lot. And I understand that very well. And while much of this work can seem mundane, it's essential to properly understand, oversee, and plan for the infrastructure that's needed. Only in this way can you have a positive, long-term impact on the life and health of the region. Good work now will bless the people tomorrow. One of the things I was able to be involved with was getting more water out to this area so that we can have all the water we need for development and also send it out to people that don't have it further on down the line. So, and that takes a lot of planning that we're not involved in, but it also takes the governance that we are involved in, and we do that cooperatively with others, as you know, are learning, and that's all a very good thing. It'll expand your view of how the world operates if you don't already know all that, and some of you probably do. But good work will bless people tomorrow. And finally, while looking good and doing good are important, it's even more important that we be good to have a good community. Being good is primarily a matter of having good motives. It's very important for elected officials to have and be recognized for having good motives. And the converse is also true. What might this look like? Now, in the last election, I have to tell you, I was very tempted to run, and I'm quite sure I could have gotten in. I'd have run harder than I did the last time, and I came within a whisker of getting in last time for a second term. So if I had been running, though, because I was seriously considering it, I would have run on this kind of a platform. I hope to win votes by championing a reduction of financial incentives for public service. Being translated, how much you pay the counselors. Now, my former election slogan was "Russ for us," and nothing says government for the people better than taking less of the people's money for my own benefit. Now, please don't be offended or think that I do not understand there are many facets to the issues of remuneration and benefits. And understand that I'm not saying the money council members receive necessarily corrupts their motives or service, but I'm saying it can, and it would be a good thing to look at in all levels of governance. It's very important for all the people to have good motives, not just you counselors. I think one of the big difficulties of governance in these days is that a lot of people are ungovernable. They have a motive of resisting governance rather than following good leadership. And maybe that's because they don't always see good leadership. I understand this too. But I'm convinced that it's impossible to have good government without good people. And actually, my decision not to run in the last election was greatly influenced by this conviction. I believe there's a shortage of people with good motives, so I decided to become one. And also to spend more of my efforts in my vocation, which is, of course, church-related work. I'm not a pastor now, but I'm an elder in my church, as I mentioned, and also in some other organizations. I'm serving on boards, mostly Christian organizations. But instead of serving then as counselor, which I did find very attractive with all those benefits, I elected to serve my community as a volunteer. And much of it is done through the church, but I also serve in others. Those that maybe don't know me, I've been involved with the Cowboy Poetry. We're hoping to come back for our 30th event this year. COVID has made it very difficult the last 2 years. We didn't have an event, and I don't know. It's kind of like bringing Lazarus back from the dead to come back after a couple of years off like that. We'll see what happens, but we've got high hopes. And you know, there's other things. I've been on the Cultural Roundtable. I served since being on council on that, and also on the Mayor's Commission for Volunteerism. And I'm so strongly believing that we need more of that, especially in times where our economics are challenged. It's the cheapest labor you can get. And but you want volunteers with good motives. You have to make sure they're not going to be taking advantage of people when they help them, and so on. And so I understand all that too. But anyways, it's a privilege to be able to serve that way too. And I can tell you more about that and what I'm involved in if you want to hear it sometime. I don't go on at great length, but I'd like to get to know you that I don't know very well, and you know, my door's open. If you want this, I can send an electronic copy, and it'll have my email and contact information. But finally, one of the things that I do and am involved in is praying for all of you and for this community, and I join others who do so. I'm actually involved in organizations about prayer, but we actually get around to praying too. It's amazing. And so perhaps you're not convinced of that and think it's only wishful thinking, but I believe there's great power in it, and I'd be happy to receive any prayer requests that you might have from time to time. And so I think with those comments, I'll thank you for your time and attention. And now, Mr. Mayor, if I may, I would like to offer a brief prayer. I promise this will not be the around the world prayer.
Sure. Go ahead, Councilor.
Thank you. So I pray, Heavenly Father, that you would pour out your good spirit on this council and on this community. Give us good hearts, good motives. And may Stony Plain be blessed with these officials, these elected officials, and with public workers and administration and ordinary citizens who also have good hearts and motives. And we pray for then people to do good work, whether they're on council or as volunteers or in the administration and staff of the town. And we pray that that would make Stony Plain and keep Stony Plain a good place in every way. And now may God bless you with a good meeting this evening. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you and good night. How long was that? 20 minutes? No.
I'm not too sure. I wasn't timing. Usually our staff time that, but thank you very much, former Councillor Ross-Graf, for your comments and your prayer for members of council. And I appreciate the work that you've did for our community from 2013 to 2017 as a councillor for our community. What you mentioned, we're starting to see the benefits of that. You said the good work that we do now bless the people of tomorrow. And the foundations that you helped lay with our community back for those 4 years from 2013 to 2017, we're starting to see some of the benefits. So thank you very much for your service.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Good night.
Administration, anything else? Anybody else registered for the public input session?
Your Worship, we have had no further registrations this evening.
Okay. Thank you. With that, we'll move on to number 4 of presentations. We have the Meridian Housing Foundation. Good afternoon. Again, there's 2 mics there. If you can speak directly into the mic and introduce yourselves before you start.
So good afternoon, Your Worship, Council members and administration. I am Lorianne St. Arno, Executive Director at Meridian Housing Foundation. And joining me is Member-at-Large and Board Chair of the Meridian Housing Foundation, Randy DeBoer.
Good evening.
With the recent announcement of the Alberta government's release of Alberta's 10-year strategy to improve and expand affordable housing, there will be capital dollars available for capital projects. The province is taking action to provide more housing options that meets the needs of low-income Albertans. This includes accessing dollars for the development of a new lodge. Meridian Housing Foundation provides housing for seniors. The clientele we serve is only seniors, and this is made mention in both the mission and vision statements, which truly aligns with our current operations. Meridian Housing Foundation is a public, not-for-profit foundation who has registered charity status. We have 303 housing units spread out over 9 buildings and a wait list of 173 seniors. The wait lists are managed to ensure that the numbers are accurate and current. At a minimum, once a year, everyone is contacted to confirm that they are still in need of housing. Meridian Housing Foundation was founded in 1960 as a result of our municipalities who had a desire to provide accommodation to seniors. I'm thankful for these forward-thinking people who were community-minded and had seniors in their best interests. They wanted to ensure seniors could remain in their community they called home and have access to housing. Throughout these years, the Foundation has established many collaborative relationships with various organizations, many of which they work very closely with. In January of 1995, the Meridian Housing Foundation was established as a housing management body by ministerial order under the Alberta Housing Act. The Act prescribes the parameters within which Meridian Housing Foundation may operate. The town of Stony Plain, the city of Spruce Grove, and Parkland County are legislated by the province as a member municipality to Meridian Housing Foundation, as described in the ministerial order. The foundation is highly regulated and undergoes many inspections, audits, and reviews on a regular basis. We are proud to demonstrate compliance to all. An application process takes place annually to maintain a license involving an accommodation standards review by government inspectors. Our facility portfolio consists of 9 buildings, 2 lodges in the same location. Whispering Waters Manor was opened in 1990, replacing the original Meridian Lodge, and an addition was completed in 2007, Forest Ridge Place. Forest Ridge Place was built accessing capital dollars from an affordable housing program. We manage 5 self-contained buildings for the province of Alberta, which are located in Stony Plain, Spruce Grove, and Wabamun. And the foundation also owns 2 affordable housing facilities. All 9 buildings are geared to seniors. Meridian Housing Foundation is the only public, not-for-profit lodge provider in the communities of Spruce Grove, Stony Plain, and Parkland County. The 3 communities make up a population of about 90,000 people. The 99 units lodge is located in Stony Plain and has a residency and eligibility criteria in place. Residency requirement means seniors must be a resident of one of our member municipalities to come live in the lodge. These residents have first right of access to housing. We are also the only lodge in the region to offer the Lodge Assistance Program. It is geared towards the low-income seniors. Depending on their income, the province may provide assistance in additional funding. The only other organization offering some similar units in this area is St. Michael's Health Group, which is a private organization open to any seniors and able to set whatever rental price they choose. Many seniors cannot afford the prices set forth by the private industry. In fact, Meridian Housing Foundation has had seniors move to live with them from other organizations due to financial hardships. In all due respect, I am sure that there is room for both types of housing in the Parkland region. The Seniors Lodge program in Alberta houses almost 10,000 seniors in over 147 lodges in a community setting with meals, housekeeping, and recreational activities for functionally independent seniors. Another item that makes Meridian Housing Foundation unique is the requirement to ensure that seniors are left with a disposable income of $322 at the end of each month. Rent increases must be in accordance with guidelines provided to housing management bodies. When we look at median income in the province and in Edmonton, you can see that we are definitely serving the right seniors. Our seniors' income are significantly less. Working to confirm what they knew, a shortage of lodge housing, the Board of Directors gave direction in 2018 to find a location in Spruce Grove. In 2019, a governance report was completed by Sage Analytics, Inc., and the discussion of capital requisition was brought forward. Member municipalities were contacted for presentations, although we were only welcomed in 3. There's a little bit of confusion. At that time, we had 4 member municipalities. We had the Village of Wabamun, which has recently been dissolved and is now Parkland County. In efforts to maintain positive relationships, Meridian Housing Foundation organized a member municipality collaborative session in early 2020. Also in 2020-2021, Collier's project leaders was awarded to complete a housing needs assessment and a business case development options for the Spruce Grove Lodge. All reports were shared with member municipalities along with their recommendations. The lack of senior housing units in the region was confirmed. If something is not done, we will be faced with a senior housing crisis in our communities. We are so far behind in comparison to our partners around us. They have been taking action by investing in their future. By 2031, it is estimated that more than 24,000 seniors will live in the Parkland region. This compares with an estimated 12,000 living in this region today. At this rate of growth, it is estimated that by 2036, we will have a shortage of 1,000 lodge units. Our population is increasing, and suitable housing is in high demand. How future housing looks will be different than it is now. Decisions made today will impact us all. In meeting with Minister Pon, she was clear in expressing that through municipalities, taxpayers need to contribute to develop senior housing. Municipalities must demonstrate support and commitment for the province and the feds to come to the table. Without adequate housing, seniors will be forced to leave the community they helped build due to long wait lists and inability to pay private costs. Meridian Housing Foundation has secured 4.45 acres in a prime downtown Spruce Grove location. The land borders a medical center and walking distance to amenities. The proposed lodge will be comprised of a mixed model rent program, something that is not offered in our current lodge. Also new will be a locked dementia care wing. We are seeing more and more seniors with dementia. In our experience, some of these seniors are very capable of being independent, although they wander and do not remember how to get back home. Having this type of care in place means they will be able to stay with us longer. Informed by our findings of the Collier report, the Board of Directors is in support of a 102-unit lodge in the city of Spruce Grove. They are seeking support for a capital lodge requisition. As mentioned previously, these talks have been going on since 2019. This lack of commitment to move forward has resulted in a shortage of lodge reserve dollars to be made available as equity to move the project forward. Collier's project leaders is strongly recommending a $3 million annual capital requisition. Plans are in place to access dollars through CMHC. The CMHC National Co-Investment Fund is set to end in 2027, or when the funds have been exhausted, whichever comes first. It is anticipated by interest and volumes of application that the funds will be exhausted first. The impact of a $3 million capital contribution will vary among taxpayers based on their taxable assessments. Increases are minimal, knowing the long-term benefits of investing in senior housing. Anyone living in our region can access lodge housing once they come to age. Just like school taxes, everyone must contribute to the benefit of all. The longer we withhold implementing contributions, the higher the initial capital amount will be to meet the recommendations brought forward in Collier's report. Anytime anyone avoids or delays doing any increases, it usually results in higher costs, and we are forced to play catch-up. Meridian Housing Foundation has acted responsibly and done their due diligence. We have worked with consultants to build a business case, received direction from the Board of Directors, and thus were positioned to take advantage of a private opportunity to secure a prime parcel of land in an ideal location. Applications have been made for CMHC seed funding, and Meridian Housing Foundation has been approved the maximum amount of The intent is to start utilizing these funds as soon as municipal support is confirmed for planning and development. Upon hearing the provincial's 10-year strategy announcement, Meridian Housing Foundation took the initiative to re-highlight our project and submitted an advocacy letter lobbying the province for the Spruce Grove Lodge. A response was received shortly, and a meeting has been scheduled for December 13th. We have an opportunity to access capital dollars right now, as housing is a hot topic by provincial and federal government. It is critical to receive support from our member municipalities. Without municipal support, we cannot advance or secure provincial or federal funding. You know, we all have a common interest, and that is seniors in our communities. People deserve to remain in the community they lived all their lives. All of our strategic plans, Town of Stony Plain, City of Spruce Grove, Parkland County, they all align in one form or another, speaking to communities. This may be in the form of jobs, employment opportunities, keeping families together, or being healthy, strong, or complete communities. Time is of essence, and we need to act now. Capital dollars are being made available as I speak. There's been years where there's been no capital, we've been told. I have been advocating and have the province's attention right now. Municipalities must indicate their support in a form of letter and later on, contribution. You have to put some skin in the project. It's an easy decision for higher levels of government to do the same if they see interest and seriousness at the lower level. Let's make it a win-win opportunity. It is up to member municipalities to make lodge housing available to all their residents. The data has been compiled and brought to your attention. It's time to take proper action and ensure the senior population can remain in the Parkland region. Meridian Housing Foundation has a great reputation in the community and takes pride in the services offered to seniors. Let's continue the work started in 1960 with those forward-thinking elected officials. Meridian Housing Foundation is counting on your support to ensure that residents' needs are met. In order to advance, Meridian Housing Foundation requires a supporting letter and, at the soonest opportunity, a motion to approve the $3 million capital requisition for the 2022 budget. The time is now to invest in our communities. Meridian Housing Foundation has been successful in getting the province's attention towards the Spruce Grove Lodge project with the meeting on December 13th to have further discussion. We are asking to have a letter of support for the Spruce Grove Lodge by member municipality this evening to bring forward to this meeting. This letter will be powerful and speak volumes. I want to see this project highly ranked to the top of their list of applications. When making decisions of awarding capital dollars, I want the Spruce Grove Lodge there. Without the letter, Meridian Housing Foundation will have no choice but to cancel the meeting. There's no point in wasting the province's time or Meridian Housing Foundation's time if municipalities are not supportive in moving forward to see the foundation grow and keep the seniors in our communities. I am proud of what the Meridian Housing Foundation represents in our community. Meridian Housing Foundation looks forward to your support and the upcoming meeting with the province. Thank you for allowing us to be present on short notice at today's meeting.
Thank you for your presentation, Lorianne. Appreciate that. Was very informative. As the previous representative, former Councillor Judy Bennett, has kept council informed of the goings in and out of the foundation through definitely the minutes that the town council accepts and through updates by Councillor Bennett at that time. So it sounds like here is that You have secured the land in Spruce Grove. It looks like you have meetings with the minister set up for the 102-unit lodge in Spruce Grove. What you're requesting from the town of Stony Plain is a letter of support for the lodge development to continue. That's the first step, right?
The first step, yeah. The Meridian Housing Foundation requests member municipalities to provide a letter of support following today's meeting.
Okay.
That mayor and council accept the Meridian Housing Foundation information as presented and support the Spruce Grove Lodge development project.
Okay.
That's what I'm asking for tonight.
Yeah, thank you. Members of council, any questions, comments for clarity and understanding? Councilor Lowry, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you very much for the presentation this evening. I'm just curious, you kind of spoke a little bit about the $3 million capital requisition starting in 2022, and you showed a bit of the split based on assessment for Spruce Grove, Stony Plain, and Parkland County. But can you drill that down a little bit more to the actual resident? So what does that look like to a resident of the town of Stony Plain if this $3 million capital requisition is added in 2022?
Thank you, Councillor Lowry. It is all based on taxpayers' taxable assessment, so it is very difficult to give you an actual number. I know, and we're not the expert in that. I think that would be your finance department. A taxable assessment of, I'm going to say, 460 could bring you anywhere around the $55 mark. And that's if we did our calculations right. Like I said, the Meridian Housing Foundation is not the ones that put out the tax bill, so I think we would need to seek that from your finance department.
Your Worship, if we may, through you to administration, do we have any type of figures? I know when we can contemplate our corporate plan, we understand based on $100,000 of assessment value. Do we have something similar for the capital requisition as to what that looks like per $100,000 assessment value on a residential property?
Your Worship, through to Councillor Lowry, it's something that we could calculate, but we haven't calculated for this meeting tonight.
That I'm quite confident. We've tried to look within house on even our own staff's notices, and that's why one really sticks in my mind, because it was a town of Stony Plain, and I believe it was around the 450 mark, and I believe it was around going to be a 55, and that's provided we did our calculations right.
And then one more, if I may, Your Worship.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you. So you mentioned St. Michael's, and St. Michael's, as we know, is just starting construction of a facility in the city of Spruce Grove. Are you aware if St. Michael's either has received provincial or federal funding for that building, or are they in the same list of applications at this time?
Again, thank you for your question. I'm really cannot answer that. I know they did make some application. Have they received? I'm unsure of that. But like I said in my presentation, we are very separate. We operate very different, and I think they are private, we are public, and I do believe there is a need. Looking at our chart on the medium incomes, we really do serve the very low income seniors. We do receive the LAP grant, which I discussed also. We have a 99-unit lodge. We receive the LAP grant for 84 of those. So,
thank you. And just to finish with that thought, Your Worship, in respect to that, if you are unable to receive grant dollars from either the federal or provincial government, how would that impact this project, even if you were to receive the 3 approval letters or support letters from the municipalities?
I have been working with Colliers, the consultants. We have completed the National Co-Investment Fund application. It is a very lengthy process. We are done doing it. We are at the point of pressing submit, but we cannot send submit until we know that there is municipal support, some equity in it. So the funding would come through CMHC, and that's where these dollars are being funneled through, these capital dollars. the CMHC is a federal program. The province gives direction to the feds on which projects they approve. It's all funneled through the same. We have received the National Co-Investment Fund for our latest project, interest at 1.1%. There is substantial savings. It is a very lengthy, it's months in the doing to do the application, but it's very rewarding in the end.
Okay, thank you. And Councilor, I'm just going to rephrase that question. So I think you asked the question, even with, for example, if Council did tonight accept the motion to provide a letter of support, and then maybe later on we do a motion to support the $3 million requisition. The question is, as you go through the process, which allows you to go to, if all three municipalities agree, you continue down that pathway. And what if a grant is not received? Then what is the dollars used for then? Is there another large project we can look at, or does that money get returned to the municipalities? I think that was a question of what happens to that money that has been collected for the capital project.
I apologize. I think we're still going to work hard to access, continue to advocate, and see that project come through. Like, there's such a need, and I think it is a very win-win once I meet with the province. Like I say, one lodge for 90,000 people, we work off wait lists. I've been there for 16 plus years and don't know what a vacancy is.
Okay. So I'll ask that question again. So if we continue down this way, and if there's support, and you're denied the request from CMHC for the portion, I know that, so there's property in Spruce Grove that is purchased already. There's also property purchased in Town Stony and Plain. Is there other avenues or different designs or different concepts of lodges that we can review as the Meridian Housing Foundation to pursue other opportunities and not just this opportunity?
I'm sure there is. I'm sure our board wants to see growth. There will be discussion. There will be discussion because growth needs to take place.
Okay. And I'll just follow up before I move to another councillor is, for example, if council does support capital requisition, and we've done it for 3 years, if there is no project going ahead, then we can stop those capital requisitions until a project has been designed or approved before we start again.
You know, I think once you start capital requisition, I don't think you should be denying it, putting it on hold. We have our neighbors to the west of us who have $6 million in capital requisition annually. They are shovel-ready at any project time. Right. They can make things move.
Right, and I understand that as being the appointed councillor that is sitting on the Meridian Housing Foundation, and this is a new project that's just starting up. As you mentioned in your presentation, this has been talked about since 2018, so we're 2021 right now, which is only 3 years down the road. And as I mentioned earlier, former councillor Julie Bennett updated members of council on this project. But my idea and question is because council has to be wary of the strain on the taxpayer. There's only one taxpayer, regardless if you get it from grants or from capital requisition. If we're not ready to build something because we're not approved, similar to members of council, we don't add more money to a reserve to hold it there for another day if we don't need it at this point in time. So we just do not collect the taxes, which is very similar to that we talked about in council before in terms of the storm management levy that we created a couple years ago. Administration wanted $20 per household. We couldn't justify that because they couldn't show us exactly where that money is going. So we dropped down to 10, and this year we raised it to 17 because now we have the projects in place. That's what I'm asking. Is it possible to start this, go ahead with this process, be denied, hold back until we find another project, then continue again?
The intent is to start moving forward with this 150,000 seed funding right now to get this project planned and developed. That'll be brought forward to the board with the results, and I'm sure shared with municipalities. There will be a decision to be made there too once we see the outcome of that that report, how we move forward. But we need to know that we have support to move forward. Why would I start spending $150,000 if I don't have support?
Right, I don't think we're arguing about if we have support or not. We're asking the
Yeah.
next phases.
Yeah.
So I'm saying if there was support between 3 municipalities and you went forward and you were not successful getting the grant, what's the next step, right? And that's the question, right? I think from what we've seen around the table in the presentations and through our own housing needs assessment, there is a need. So we're not denying that. We're saying
Yeah.
if we go ahead with this and it continues down the path, 2 years down the road, this process has happened, you submitted your applications, and it's denied in year 3. The question is, can we then pause it until we find another project?
Yeah. That's right. We do have to reconfigure the project to whatever funds are made available.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Councilor Fletchko?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for the presentation today, Lorianne. A couple of questions. So a bit of a concern is there's a large need for housing within the region, not just seniors, but it's the overall picture of the housing. So we're going to be seeing more presentations similar to what you're doing, sitting before us, asking us for participation. Now, I understand how important the Meridian Housing Foundation is since 1960 to the community. However, I understand that Coyers also suggests a $3 million capital. Has the board looked at a $1.5 million, a $1 million project? Have you looked at starting a project smaller instead of a 90-bedroom place, maybe a 45-bedroom place that you can build onto? It's a large ask for the communities right now in a time where support from individuals is very tough. We're in a very tough economy right now, and asking for that sometimes gets to be very large for the people. I have a question that I'm going to be asking our administration to figure out later on this evening that I've kind of come up with to look at what our area can support. You know, we keep asking our taxpayers for more and more and more and more, and we keep running them shorter and shorter. And I know that many of the people out there today are struggling to make ends meet. So we need to start looking. I understand there's a need for a lot of things, but we need to start looking at where that money's coming from and how we start to support everybody within the organization. So for me, when I look at what you're asking for, I don't think it's an unreasonable ask, but I also think there's a better way to ask for that. And that better way may have been to come and say, here's the recommendations, here's how we're going to try and get there, but going forward, here's a small ask that maybe we could all wrap our heads around to get the ball rolling instead of a large ask that gets stopped. You know, you made reference earlier that there was 3 that participated, we'll keep the names out of it, and 1 that didn't not that long ago. So now we're down to 3 that can participate. If we take 1 of them out of it, now there's only 2 of us. If we made a more reasonable ask, I'm just wondering if that would be something, and has the board looked at that possibility of going forward?
Go ahead.
Thank you. We have asked. It's not the first time we've asked. This ask has been going on, like I say, since 2019, these discussions. We were down to a 1 million, and that didn't go through. So at what point do we keep saying no? I know there's a lot of people that are asking, but we can't keep putting this on hold. And that's why now we're up to 3, because Collier's saying 3 years at 3 million doesn't get us this project going till 2025. We want to be in there before 2027 because they're quite positive that the funds will be exhausted well before 2027. So as municipalities, that has been going on since 2018, 2019 for certain. And that ask has been brought down and still denied. So at what point am I asking, what is the hesitation? What is the hesitation to move forward? And that's why we're at a 3 million now. It didn't go through at the 1 and the 2 millions. So Colliers redid their motion and said, in order to meet the CMHC loan funding application, they had to put at 3 million now to ensure we're ready for 2025.
original question, I
Yeah.
guess, is,
Yeah.
you didn't make it past the $1 million one.
Yeah,
And now we're today asking 3, which
I
is
know.
a substantial amount more. And I'm just wondering, in the times, if that million might have had been more accepted today than it was to achieve a goal that we need to achieve. Because I understand that there's a huge need within our communities for the seniors, but there's also a huge need in our communities for affordable housing for a lot of people. So I'm just wondering if there was a way that we could possibly consider that aspect of it. So
we
thanks.
can definitely consider it smaller, but it's going to take us longer, and we then risk the possibility of not getting the funding.
Thank you.
Go ahead,
Mayor,
Mr. Chair. Go
and
ahead.
also to Councillor Pelechko as well. We did have some discussion. We've had, I guess that the board, at least three of us on this board, we've been to one meeting. We've had our orientation. We're in a little bit similar situation to you as well on council in terms of being new. So we did have some discussion at our recent board meeting about the $3 million. And yes, there's a concern about that and how much it is. But as Lori-Ann has explained, we're really in a kind of a difficult situation right now, in that we really want to get going, go forward with this project, and this is the way so far that we see it happening. But really the big ask for us tonight is we're looking for the support. Is there support by the 3 municipalities to move forward with this potential project? Because it is, at this point, there's not a lot of details involved. We know approximately what it might cost. We have all kinds of things like that before us, but until we get the municipalities to say, yes, we support this, and we can go to the province and we can say, we have the support, we think it might cost this much, we want to be on the list and a priority for you with this additional funding that they just announced as well. So that's kind of the position that we're in, and that's why we wanted to come forward tonight, and we appreciate the opportunity because we know it's last minute, and we do appreciate being able to talk to you tonight. So,
Thank you. Councillor Hanson.
Thank you, Mayor Choi. First of all, I'm very pleased to see both Mr. Dubord and Ms. St. Arnaud in council chambers this evening. And I simply want to clarify a couple of things and then declare you'll probably find a champion here in this seat. Having sat on Meridian Foundation Board for a good number of years, 9 actually, and 5 years as chair during a building project, I can tell you that the $3 million ask seems scary, but when you break it down and you talk about on an assessed value home of $460, it's $55 a month or a year?
A year.
Per person who lives in a $460,000 home. My home is not worth $460,000, even in municipal terms. They could get more taxes out of me, but it's not worth that.
So your ask would be less.
It's less money if your home isn't $460,000.
Yeah.
So please don't be frightened by the $3 million ask. When you break it down and spread it over the population, the $3 million too, for clarification, correct me if I'm wrong, please. The $3 million isn't just from Stony. It's spread over 3 municipalities, and you've given us a chart to break down how much each municipality would be asked for. And is that not based on population?
On equalized assessment.
On population and assessed value of the taxpayer. The other thing, too, that I think is important is that I need to know. This facility that you're talking about building in Spruce Grove, in my opinion, is long overdue, because Spruce Grove has not received many of the facilities. Most of them are in Stony Plain. Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay. So it's time for Spruce Grove to have a facility run by Meridian Foundation. It's their turn. And they like to say they're a younger population, but they have a lot of seniors. The other thing is, when we break down this amount of money per person by assessed value for the taxpayer, is that a one-time ask or is that a yearly ask?
A yearly ask.
A yearly ask. Does this facility, is it proposed that it will have a full-blown kitchen? It will have all of that basic infrastructure before you ever start counting rooms that the facility has. And so a lot of the cost is to provide the basic, the land, the building, the hallways, the kitchen, the support bathrooms, the rooms that are needed by staff to take care of seniors. Am I correct about that?
Yeah, the common spaces, the common areas.
If you're going to do all of that for just a few rooms, a few doors, it doesn't really make good sense, does it? Is that not part of the discussion that your board has had? Because it's kind of like we build churches. We go into a planning situation, and by the time we get the church built, we find it's too small. We actually needed more room than we got. That discussion came up out at Heritage Park with the event center. By the time it got pulled off the shelf and looked at, it was almost too small, we thought. So what I would like to know is if Meridian Foundation is not ready when the cycle comes nationally, that money is available, CMHC is going to administer it, then we miss out. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And if the project comes available and the province hasn't signed on and the federal government hasn't signed on through CMHC dollars, the project is lost. Is that correct?
Correct.
And all you're asking for tonight is letters of support from 3 municipalities to get you started on the planning phase so you can explore. You're not asking for money tonight, are you?
No, I'm
You're
not.
asking for a letter of support and to give us some information so we can make that decision. You're saying this is the proposed cost. Is that correct? I think I've gotten a lot of information from you. My understanding is accurate. So the big thing is to know that the federal dollars are there. Know that we have provincial basic support. We also had a meeting with Minister Pond, Mayor Choi, myself, and who was the other counselor who went with us? Councilor Lord. We had a meeting, and she is absolutely a minister dedicated to affordable housing. And it may be an idea whose time has come. My suggestion is that I'm assuming Mayor Choi or the board member assigned to Meridian Foundation, which I think also is Mayor Choi, would be able to be on top of this as a part of the board and to keep council adequately informed as you go through the process so that we don't feel tonight in deciding if we're going to write a letter of support that we're stepping off a cliff and now we're on the hook for $3 million yearly without knowing what that means. Am I correct?
You're correct. I try to be very transparent, so that's why I am again bringing up the $3 million capital contribution, because it will be the next step, you know. And something that I want to make mention is, you know, there's a lot of people that don't know, don't look at their tax bills. I have 4 new members at large. I got an email after our last board meeting saying, oh, I went home and I checked my tax bill. I didn't realize I was paying so much towards the Meridian Housing Foundation. I don't have, now that I understand it, I don't have an issue with an increase. And that's a lot of the problem is the education. The Meridian Housing Foundation is ready to put tax notices in at their cost in with a pamphlet of information in the tax notices at their cost to try to educate as many people as to what that line number is. I think once people know, and this is from my colleagues in the industry, once they know, there's no issue because they say you could have doubled that. We know where it's going and we can benefit from it. We want to access it when we get to that age. We want to ensure that there's housing for us.
Okay, thank you very much, and I appreciate the comment about the tax notices. I think that was, 2 years ago, Meridian Housing Foundation, again, through this process, provided a pamphlet which the town of Stony Plain inserted in our tax notices so that we can educate our residents of what the Meridian Housing Foundation does and where the money goes to. So you've done that once already, so it wouldn't hurt to do it again if we need to continue educating the residents. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship. And thank you guys for coming. I appreciate the presentation. I can't help but make this a very personal thing for myself. During these past 2 years, the collapse of my busing business has forced a lot of exactly what you're talking about tonight. Keeping seniors in our community. I know certainly as we discuss this, and I appreciate your being straightforward, knowing that we're not just, yes, tonight we're just asking for letters of support, but I do appreciate you being straightforward in presenting the ask further down, because it will mean that we have to prioritize something over something else, and we all up here have our own ideas of what that might be or mean. So it's a very personal thing. Now, where am I going with this? I think you hit it on the head. We want to know that we're going to be taken care of and have that when we're that age. And that means taking care of some people that won't be able to take care of themselves. And I think a lot of the councillors up here have spoken a lot about, I think Councillor Pletchko also nailed it on the head. We're in a tough economy. It is, I like to say, I was telling my fellow councillors I was washing my shirts by hand because I can't afford to clean or buy a new laundry machine. That's some choices that my generation right now are facing. And so, it's a straight up measurement of, can I afford to live in this community versus can our seniors? But at the same time, I look around, there's a big crunch on housing everywhere. And I cannot imagine people who really are at the end of their working career having an opportunity. My generation, we can still shake and jive and make some moves. People in that situation can't. So, I don't know, I guess there's a long-winded way of saying we got to make some sacrifices. I think you'll find I also support this tonight. I think it's a priority for me, and it should be for this community as well. So I appreciate your presentation tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Lowry?
Thank you, Your Worship, and I appreciate some of the clarity that's gone on so far. And I will start by saying, obviously I am fully supportive and looking forward to supporting a letter for the Meridian Housing Foundation. But what I'm challenged with is, in reviewing the information from the CMHC, their statement of you must be ready for construction within 6 months of approval. So you must start construction within 6 months of approval. Now you've mentioned that the application is ready to go. Obviously, without this requisition and the 3 years required to get up to the $9.5 million, you would not be ready to go within 6 months. And so I'm a little challenged on that, but Councillor Pletchko actually brought up a great point about the phasing and about potentially looking at this project, instead of building a 102-unit project, having the overall project being 102 units, but starting with 40 units, let's say. Because that, depending on calculations, you could potentially receive that requisition within 1 year. And you could be ready within, let's say, an 18-month time frame to start construction rather than looking at 2025, 2026. You've mentioned time is of the essence, that this program ends in 2027 or when funding is exhausted. And if you're looking at a project of this size, and we're not looking at being able to formally apply until 2024, 2025, when you actually have that 25% of equity, I'm concerned that we're not actually going to be able to realize this project. And that's where my question came in before as well, about what happens if this doesn't go through. You've requisitioned that money, you have $9.5 million at that point in time in capital. What's the next step? And I guess before you answer that, a second question I have is, you can requisition those dollars, but given the vast assets that the foundation has, do you not have the ability to potentially borrow against that for equity and get to that $9.5 million much sooner?
You nailed it. So that would be, we do want to get forward. We do want the 3 million capital requisition. We want to get that going. In the meantime, that is something that Colliers has brought forward to us, is would the municipality, would the board and the municipalities be open to doing a borrowing or against collateral as we collect those 3 millions?
So if I'm understanding that right, as long as your $3 million requisition were to go through for the year of 2022, you would look to then potentially borrow against existing assets for the additional $6 million.
So we can move forward quicker.
With a payment, with the repayment of that borrowing by the $3 million requisition over, I guess that would be the 2023, 2024 year. So you would be ready then as early as 2023 for the ask to CMHC.
Yes.
Which makes much more sense to me. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Members of council, any more questions of clarity and understanding? Okay. Thank you for your presentation. I think the next steps for council is to bring that motion at the end of our agenda under business items, as this is a presentation and is coming out of that. I'm looking at the town manager, ledge services. Can we have that come out of the business arising from the presentation?
Your worship, that's certainly an option for council. The other option would be to, I know I heard a December 13th date from the presenters, but the other option would be to have it coming back on December 13th for approval at that time. But council does have the option to continue it on this agenda this evening.
Okay, and I would advise that we will kind of address it tonight, as mentioned by the presenter, that they're scheduled to have a meeting with the minister on December 13th, and we don't meet till 5, so that is, without that letter of support, then there's no, as mentioned, there's no need to meet with the minister. Okay, so members of council will make that motion a little bit later in the business items. Again, thank you for your presentation. Again, to members of council, members of our residents that are looking, if you look at your tax bill, I pulled up my tax bill. In terms of the Meridian Foundation requisition for operating, it is 23.03 cents a year. So if we triple that and we ask for the $3 million contribution, that is, if council approves it, is a yearly fee of $69.09. which is broken down to $575 a year, or 19 cents a day for seniors lodging in our communities, if council of the 3 municipalities approves a $3 million requisition. Thank you.
Thank you.
Drive safely to your next presentation. Hey, members of council, moving on with our agenda, it is number 5 now, is statutory public hearings. We do not have any, so moving on to number 6 is adoption of council minutes. Council will be adopting all 3, 6.1, 6.3, and 6.2, and 6.3 all at once. Councillor Anderson.
Town Council approved the Town Council meeting minutes as presented for October 12th, October 25th, November 8th, and 9th of 2021.
Okay, thank you much, Councillor. Members of Council, any errors or omissions on those minutes that you've read through? Okay, see none. I'd like the Council to turn to page 15. Page 15 at the very, very top on 3.1 under the blessing. The word is spelled honor with the O-R instead of O-U-R as the American spelling versus Canadian spelling. I don't really mind, but I think we're in Canada. I think we should stick with the Canadian spelling of honor. Any objections from members of council? Councillor Anderson, as amended?
Sorry?
As amended?
As amended?
With the change, is you want to do it as amended, or do you want us to make a motion to actually change that?
Do I have to go through the whole thing again?
No, he's asking if you.
So Councillor Anderson, so your motion was to be as presented? It'll be changed to as amended because we're
I
making that one change.
apologize. I actually can't hear the mayor at the moment, and that's part of the problem. I can't hear what he's saying. Can we turn his mic up?
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Anderson, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, so as noted on the organization meeting on page 15, the word honor is spelled with O-R instead of O-U-R. And I'm asking if we're okay with changing that to changing that spelling. So if you're okay with that, then it'll be not as presented, but as amended on the motion.
So I move that town council approve the meeting minutes as amended.
Yes.
I do.
Thank you. Members of council, any errors or omissions? Okay, see none, I'll call the question. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, move on to 7.1, 2, and 3, which is council boards and committee minutes. We have the CRT, the Tri-Leisure, and the Meridian Foundation. Councillor Hansard, go ahead. I don't think any of us.
Mr. Mayor, are you asking for this to be accepted as information?
Yeah, the motion, please, Councillor Hansard.
Oh, I get to read that. The town council received the council boards and committee meeting minutes for information. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hansard. Members of council, you had a chance to read the council boards and committee minutes. Any questions, comments to the elected officials or administration on those boards? I don't have any either, so I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, moving on to number 8, which is bylaws. 8.1 is the bylaw for fees and charges. Go ahead, administration.
Thank you. Good evening, Your Worship and Council. Including in the council agenda package is the fees and charges bylaw for council consideration. The bylaw supports council's user fee philosophy that where possible, user fees cover particular program and service costs to the best of their ability. The fees and charges are reviewed annually by each department and adjustments made as necessary. The majority of the changes in the updated bylaw was minor cleanup, as well as updates based on the presented 2022 to 2024 corporate plan. Notable changes include the addition of fire services fees as per the fire bylaw approved in 2021 and simplification of meter installation charge on water to recover costs of meter and installation. We'll now ask council if there are any questions regarding this bylaw.
Okay, thank you, administration. So members of council, this bylaw, the next one, is to support our corporate plan that we debated a couple weeks ago and is here for us to finalize. And then again, the corporate plan is to be dealt with during the business item meetings. Members of council, any questions of clarity of understanding of the presentation from administration? Councilor Lowry?
Thank you, Your Worship. And a question of clarity, and it actually applies to both this bylaw and the upcoming bylaw that we have. As you said, these are bylaws that are supportive of the corporate plan. And I'm just curious as to why we don't see the first reading of these bylaws during corporate plan, because to me, these make up a portion of the corporate plan. Anytime that the fees and charges or the utility rates are being adjusted, that is being contemplated in the corporate plan. But this document very clearly shows them, whereas the corporate plan does not always show that adjustment. And so given the fact that, especially to do all 3 readings in one night, we do need to have unanimous consent. And after the first reading, we don't really hear any feedback by going through all 3 readings in the same night and having unanimous consent. I'm just curious if we can get some clarity as to why the first reading of these bylaws would not be brought forward with the corporate plan during the corporate plan discussions.
Okay. Question to administration, go ahead.
Your Worship, through to Councillor Laurie, it's just been past practice, this is how it's been presented, that, we want council focused on the corporate plan and try to present that in a way that is understandable. And then this is sort of the cleanup and the detailed bylaw behind, but definitely can take those comments back for consideration.
Thank you. Thanks for that explanation. Any other questions or comments? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Councillor answered that or no? Oh, okay. Thank you, Your Worship. Just for clarification, turning to page 79, there's development agreement security, number of items there have been scratched. I was just wondering if administration could provide some explanation there for me, please.
Administration.
Your Worship, through you to Councillor Meyer. So the development agreement security has been removed from this bylaw because it is in a policy, an administrative policy that was approved by the town manager. The development security is now a tiered approach where we have different categories of developers, and as you move up in the category, your requirement for security is lowered. So we've gone about it in a different way, and it's included in a policy instead of in this bylaw.
And thank you. Just to follow up to that, then, go ahead. So, for clarity, this is not necessarily removed from policy. It's just under another bylaw now.
Your Worship, through you to Councillor Meyer. So it's previously was in the bylaw exclusively. It's been removed from the bylaw and moved to a policy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hansard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a general question in the page of, in the location of page 57, and it's about resubmission fees are actually quite high. Is a resubmission the same as an extension? If a developer or someone wanting to build a garage has submitted fees to be able to do that, and something came along like a COVID year or difficulty in the economy where things weren't able to move along as the applicant originally intended, do they have to pay the larger fee, or is there a smaller fee for granting an extension?
Okay. Councillor Hansard, I think the resubmission fee is exactly what you mentioned. It's only 25% of the original fee.
It's less?
Yes,
Okay.
it's 25%. So if it was $100 originally, then when they reapply 2 years later, 3 years later, it's only 25% of that.
Okay, I'll accept that as not being more money, but could we just have clarification? Is resubmission the same as asking for an extension?
No, it's not. An extension, as members of council, for development permits, et cetera, town staff can do it. For subdivisions, town council can do the extension, and there's usually a time frame attached to that extension, and there's 0 fees attached to that.
Okay.
So this is something that has lapsed and no longer active, and then they're reapplying.
Okay.
And the resubmission fee, again, is 25% of the original fee.
Okay. I do have another question later on in this. Are you?
Okay, go ahead.
You want me to ask it now? Yes. Page 81, we're talking about, it looks as though we've done away with recreation fees being charged of developers. So we don't collect anything toward capital recreation from developers anymore?
No, Councillor Hansard, that has been removed from the bylaws. Fees and charges is because it's been evolved and moved to our offset levies. So it is an offset levy charge now.
So we didn't lose it, we just put it somewhere else and
we've increased it, and now it is part of offset levies.
Okay.
Site. Okay, any other questions, comments of clarity? Councilor Pledgko, please.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to refer to page 56 and the top part of 57, where we talk about business licenses for auto wreckage, boxing and wrestling, carnival or circus, massage parlors, escort and dating services. I'm just wondering, we've placed these at a substantially high fee. Is that common for most communities to segregate what businesses they want to come to our communities?
Okay. On the fees, special services.
Thank you, Worship. Through to Councillor Pletchko. We reviewed the business license bylaw in 2019, and at that time we did provide a comparative analysis of the fees and the definitions within those. And those fees have not changed specifically with regards to those classifications. So those are traditionally fees that are charged higher for those services because of the specialized nature of those businesses and their service provision. So basically, we've had those fees in place for a number of years, and our comparisons did not warrant any recommended changes to those fees within the bylaw, as well as within our review of the fees as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Councilor Laurie.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I'll refer to page 66 of our package. In regards to the RCMP service fees, for the criminal record check fee, our fee is currently set at $25, and I know, just doing a little bit of personal looking, that is significantly lower than many of the RCMP detachments around us, in the range of 2 to 3 times lower. In addition, many RCMP detachments will also charge a resident rate and a non-resident rate. Being my employment in a not-for-profit sports organization locally, I deal with criminal record checks quite frequently, and our detachment is always very, very busy with criminal record checks and a very high volume. I'm just wondering if we've had any analysis done as to where our prices for criminal record checks sit in relation to our surrounding detachments and our surrounding police agencies, as well as if we've had any analysis done as to how many criminal record check requests we are getting from outside of our detachment service area or outside of our resident area, as to whether maybe that's causing some of our backlog if our price is significantly lower than surrounding detachments.
Administration.
Your Worship, through to Councillor Laurie. Excuse me. Certainly, I could ask Inspector Locken with respect to the statistics in community, out of community. So for us, it would be, we would consider Spruce Grove, Parkland County, and the town of Stony Plain to be within the region. So certainly could get those statistics from him. I'm not sure how quickly we could get that, but we could certainly look at that. With respect to fee comparison, we have not conducted that for a couple of years. So certainly we could contemplate that for the next bylaw review.
And as a follow-on to that, Your Worship, would administration be able to explain where does the revenue then from these activities go? Does this go back to covering the administrative costs of the municipal clerks in which we pay for?
Your Worship, through to Councillor Laurie, so that would go back to the overall RCMP detachment operations, and then it's reconciled with our agreement with the city of Spruce Grove.
Excellent. Your Worship, if possible, I would love to see that information brought back to council, even just in an email format.
Yes, thank you, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate the comment about maybe having a residential fee and a non-residential fee. Okay. Any other questions and comments to administration? Okay, see none. Councilor Pletchko for first reading, please.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. The Town Council give first reading to Bylaw 2652/G/21, a bylaw to establish fees and charges for the provision of certain licenses, goods, and services.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor Pletchko. So members of council, again, this bylaw is for fees and charges. That does support the corporate plan that we debated a couple weeks ago. So everything that we've approved in that corporate plan that we will finalize tonight is coming through the fees and charges and through the utility bylaw that supports the budget that has been presented to the members of council. Any questions on that motion? Councillor Hansard.
Mr. Mayor, I'm curious if there could be clarification on what are the actual dollars when we are raising or lowering fees. We get the dollars, but I found it a little awkward that we didn't have the paper or a chart to look at right across so we could see what the changes were from last time, but I'll get used to this system. I just am wondering if we know how much money extra are we asking people to pay for all these different things, which could cause a rise, it could be considered an additional tax. And if we're going to, we want to be transparent with people. If we change fees for people to be able to access goods and services, we need to be clear with them that that's in addition to or results in the tax increase that council will be approving at some point here. I'm not sure if my question is clear. I just would like to know, do we have actual dollar translations in how this affects the tax or the money that people have to put out of their pocket?
Yes. Councillor Hansard, I'll ask you to turn to page 77.
Okay.
So Councillor Hansard, so from page 77 on is the blue line version or the red line version of the changes from last year's fees and charges to this year's. As you go through them, there is very limited changes. So in terms of impact to the residents from this year to next to last year will be minimal. The only difference, as mentioned by administration during the presentation, is the addition of the fire services fees and charges that was approved by council during the fire services master plan and back in earlier in 2021.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions regarding first reading? See none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Councillor Loynes, please, for second reading.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that the Town Council gives second reading to Bylaw 2652/G/21.
Thank you. Members of Council, any questions on the second reading? Debate? Again, the bylaw for fees and charges does support the corporate plan that we debated a couple weeks ago. Okay, seeing none, call the question. All in favor of second reading? Okay. So members of council, if council deals with the bylaw in all three readings in one night, we need unanimous consent from members of council that are present. So we'll need that motion. Councillor Laurie.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move the Town Council give unanimous consent to consider third reading to Bylaw 2652/G/21.
Okay, thank you. I'll call the question. All those in favor? That's carried. Councillor Anderson for third reading, please.
I move that Town Council give third reading to Bylaw 2652/G/21.
Okay. Any debate on the third reading? Okay. See none. On behalf of council and our residents, thank you very much, administration, for updating and reviewing the fees and charges that support our corporate plan. And definitely looking through the fire services bylaw. They are accurate to what was approved by council, so I appreciate that. I'll call the question. All in favor? And that is carried. Okay, moving on to 8.2, which is the bylaw for the utility bylaw. Go ahead, administration.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. Once again, due to the proposed fees and charges changes regarding the meter installation costs, The utility bylaw was no longer consistent and needed revisions to align with this fees and charges bylaw that was just approved by council. Full review of the utility bylaw was not completed at this time and will occur during the regular scheduled timing.
Thank you, Mr. Administration. Members of council, any questions for clarity and understanding? Okay. See none, thank you for that. Councillor Hansard, for the motion for first reading, please.
Your Worship, I move that Town Council give first reading to bylaw 2653/UTIL/21, the utility bylaw.
Okay. Thank you very much. Members of council, any questions to debate on the motion? Just a quick question to administration. As mentioned in the presentation that the review of the bylaw will happen later on. Do you have a time frame?
Your Worship, we have, as we pulled this bylaw out, agreed between the departments to take a look at it in the next year or so. We've seen some other bylaws and have some ideas of how to streamline it, so it's on the work plans coming up, and hopefully we can stick to that, just mainly to make it a little bit simpler and condensed where possible.
Okay. Thank you. And again, members of council, this utility bylaw is just kind of housekeeping in terms of making sure that the numbers match the previous fees and charges bylaw we just approved. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Councillor Laurie, go ahead before I call it.
Thank you, Your Worship. And just one catch here that I had, as you mentioned, everything had kind of been moved into the fees and charges bylaw. So through you to administration on page, I believe it's 137, section 10.2, it does have a penalty violation of $100 for each violation. I'm just curious if that is consistent with our fees and charges bylaw, if that should still exist in the utility bylaw, being that we've moved everything over to the fees and charges bylaw. And if it's inconsistent, since we do have the bylaw in front of us right now, if we should take care of that.
Thank you, Councillor Laurie. Administration?
Your Worship, we're just reviewing, but typically the penalties we have left reside within the bylaws. It's just the fees and charges that reside within the fees and charges, and that would be consistent with all other bylaws.
Okay. Thank you. So members of council, so the difference is a penalty versus a fee and charge. Okay. Good question. Any other questions? Okay, see none, call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Moving on to second reading. Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. The Town Council gives second reading to bylaw 2653, utility 21/21.
Thank you. Members of council, any debate on the motion? Okay, call the question. All in favor? Okay, again, members of council, as we're doing all three readings in a single evening, we'll need unanimous consent. Councillor Plechko.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Town Council give unanimous consent to consider third reading to bylaw 2653/UTIL/21.
Okay. Call the question. All in favor? Okay, moving on to third reading. Councillor Loynes.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move the Town Council give the third reading to bylaw 2653/UTIL/21.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions in the debate? Okay. See none. So, administration, I look forward to the review over the next year or so as we can kind of streamline a lot of the bylaws that we've had and we've changed. As a council, we've seen old bylaws and updated bylaws come back to council to get either rescinded or changed so it's more up to date. So I definitely appreciate your direction on bringing this back later on. Call the question. All in favor? And that's carried, and that finishes our bylaws. So now let's take a 10-minute recess and we'll come back to business items in a few minutes. 10-minute recess. Thank you. right, members of council, and welcome back to our council meeting. So before we move on to business items under number 9, as we had earlier presentation from the Meridian Housing Foundation, even though the presentation was today, and there was an ask for a motion to, and it's time sensitive because they're having a meeting with the minister on December 13th. For us to add it to the agenda, I need a motion to from council to add it to the agenda as a 9.3, and we need at least 3 quarters of council to accept the addition. Councillor Laurie, please, with the motion to add.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move the Town Council add business item 9.3 to consider the Meridian Housing Foundation request.
Okay, thank you. Call the question. All in favor? Okay, and that's carried. So moving on to that be added to 9.3 of our agenda. Okay, move on to 9.1, which is the third quarter report. Go ahead, administration, for the highlights.
Thank you, Your Worship. And again, we're always both proud and anticipatory to provide these reports to council. They contain a great deal of information on our past operations of the town in general. Your Worship, and maybe just a couple of quick comments. We do take this information after it's presented to council and move some of it through our communication streams on social media and so forth. And I think the only other thing I would add, Your Worship, is that the report does provide, it's a bit of a backcast. It is a snapshot of that particular quarter. In this instance, it's the third quarter of 2021. Your Worship, I'll stop there. Certainly myself or any of the staff present are able to answer any questions council may have on the information contained therein.
Okay. Thank you very much, and definitely, again, another really good report that shows our residents and reminds council of what we've accomplished over the last quarter. As you can see, a lot of things have gone by the last 3 months, and it goes by by a blur, and it's really hard to remember everything. Members of council, any questions or comments or anything that council wants to highlight out of the report? Councillor Hanser, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I have to tell you, this was a real treat for me to open my council package and find this beautifully presented quarterly report in front of us for our reading. I feel like we've captured a lot more than just a quarter's worth of activity here, because I see tremendous hands at work in an awful lot of this, and I know that didn't come about in just a quarter. I do have some questions, but I wanted to say it was really interesting. I won't tell you I read every word meticulously, but I came really close to it, because I find that this is a document that helps put puzzle pieces together for me as a returning counselor. And I know that when you publish this and put it on the website, if our residents will take time to go there and read this and try to understand it and ask questions of us and administration if they have questions, it does actually flesh out a whole lot about what it is to be a town and to live in a town like Stony Plain. So thank you very much for that report.
Thank you for those comments, Councillor Hansard. You said you had some questions.
I do.
Go ahead.
On page 214, Your Worship, on I just wanted it's an item, a few items that I wanted to clarify. We have Highway 779 sidewalks. A 2021 budget was $425,994, but no expenditures in 2021. I was always under the impression that part of the finishing of Highway 779 was that the province was to pay for the sidewalks and everything. Did that get negotiated out somewhere along the way in order to get the province to come back to the table and do what they needed to do with the road?
Administration.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I'll maybe make a couple comments, and I am going to ask our General Manager of Corporate Services to provide maybe a little bit of background on these numbers and the way they're presented and what they represent. But yeah, there's a number of different capital projects in there. Highway 779 is one, and I guess when our general manager of corporate services is finished, I believe our general manager of planning infrastructure can probably speak to that specific project. But again, I'll just ask our general manager of corporate services to speak to the snapshot in time, so to speak, of these numbers. So.
Thank you, Town Manager, to all of council. So what you're seeing in front of you tonight is the annual budget for 2021. And so maybe I'll just speak to the Highway 779 because it probably is a good example of what you're seeing. So some of the work was completed in 2020. And we did accrue that from the financial side. We're still waiting on the province to bill us and to pay them for those sidewalks, and that will happen, I would guess, in the next quarter. And so we do, that true up at the end of the year, and council will see that reporting on the projects that gives you a better picture of where the project ended. This is definitely a point in time at the quarter end. So hopefully that helps you understand what you're seeing for those new councillors. The other thing that my manager of finance reminded me today is some of the construction companies don't do progress billings, and so you do see some of the projects where we haven't advanced any cash to pay for the work, and it's more on the billing side that they haven't done that. They obviously will bill us and will pay and will accrue and deal with anything at year end to make sure our financial statements are accurately reported at that time.
Okay. So just for clarification, Your Worship, then it is true that the province was not going to pay for all the sidewalk work and so forth that went alongside of Highway 779.
That's correct. Urban Transportation is worried about the road itself, and we also added the trails on the other side as well.
Okay. I do have another question on that page, if you're open to that.
Go ahead.
And this may be a simple answer similar to what I just got. Third item from the bottom on the chart on page 214 is storm system replacement, budgeted $400,000, spent $2,421. Is that a similar item that we don't have all of? I'm just not sure why the dollars would not be a little more spent on that particular item.
Okay.
And then while we're at it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, about 9 items up from the bottom. The item titled Infrastructure Replacement, year 2020, $1,840,000 and some change, $883 spent, $883,000 spent in 2021. So that's about half. I'm just curious, did something get done in a previous year, or is there still work to be done? Because I'm juxtaposing this kind of thing against our proposed tax increase this year and wondering if we haven't spent the money that was budgeted under old tax increases, why would we be increasing taxes? Because we put 1% tax increase in to beef up our infrastructure and our reserves. And I'm just wondering if I could get a little bit of an explanation. Would just help me understand.
Yes. So, Councillor Hansard, as mentioned by the General Manager, this is the snapshot of as of. So some of these projects are still in the works and they have not been completely finished or billed to the town of Stony Plain. So we can't just give money away to a contractor when they're not finished the work. So when they bill us and we have accepted the work, then we will issue a check for the invoice. Until then, it will not be paid off. It's very similar to the third line down, the Rcmp facility budget of $1.4 million, and spent there is $0 because we have not yet paid our debenture on that yet. So we're not, as mentioned by the General Manager, for accounting purposes, we don't just put numbers in there just to make it look good. It is the actual of happening at that date and time.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Councillor Laurie?
Thank you, Your Worship, and not questions, just two things that I wanted to highlight. Number one being, I believe we have 11 businesses identified in here celebrating over 30 years of business in our community, as well as a few others that were celebrating some of their 5, 10, 15-year milestones. So I think that's fantastic that we're able to celebrate those. I know there was a little bit of a challenge with COVID and the recognition for those businesses, but I think it also just goes to show the strength of the economics in our town, having businesses celebrating anywhere from, I believe it was 30 to 75 years, I think was the range in that report. So that's fantastic to have those businesses here, as all of our businesses. The other one I wanted to highlight as well was on page 201 under Public Works, the sewer backflow prevention program. This is something that we put in place as a part of our flood mitigation and something that council pressed for to see us launch. And I just want to highlight that it was launched September 27th, 2021, and I believe the third quarter would have ended about 4 days later, and the program is already oversubscribed for the year 2021. So I definitely think our residents are seeing the value in that. I appreciate the support from council and administration in getting that program going and underway. That will certainly help protect many residents' homes moving forward into the future against any type of flooding from sewer backflow when we experience the heavy rainfall events like we did several years ago.
Thank you. Any more questions? Thanks for comments. Any questions, comments to administration? Councillor Anderson, go ahead.
Just looking on page 19 at our facility usage statistics, and just out of curiosity, like I see that nearly 100% of some of our scheduled events were canceled. And obviously, you know, there's a revenue generation piece there, like we still pay for the operation of those buildings and that sort of thing. How does that affect us at the end of the term here in terms of, you know, the costs that we pay into those facilities without any revenue generated with events coming into them?
Okay. Administration?
Your Worship, through to Councillor Anderson, just for clarity, I'm looking on page 210. Yep. So just for clarity there, where it says Spruce Grove Hall, 168.5 hours scheduled. So that actually happened. And there was an additional 159.5 hours that were canceled due to COVID. So it's not a 168.5 minus the canceled gives you the total that was actually utilized. So we're just identifying what we actually had at the facility and what was actually canceled due to some of the transition that's happened due to COVID restrictions in place and the transitioning from the REP in and out of the REP program.
Thank you for the clarification on that.
Go ahead, Councillor Anderson. So he's looking for, to want to address how that affects the budget. I think the second part was like, because I think he was under that, but how does that affect the budget? And I think the budget for 2020 was reduced to consider that we would have a lot of cancellations.
Your Worship would have to confirm, but certainly I think we're, the number of hours that we're allowing people in our building is probably higher than what we projected we would be permitted. When we estimated our 2020 usage, there was very little usage permitted under the public health orders. So certainly we've been allowed a lot more in our building since as we've progressed through COVID-19.
Thank you. Anything else, Councillor Anderson?
No, thank you for that.
Your Worship, if I may, just really quickly too, and I think the general manager made that point, and I guess I'll reiterate it, that we did adjust down the revenue projections in 2021, and just a little bit of leaning over to the side here. I think our revenue projection at HP3 is reasonably on track to what it was to budget. And I think the community center downtown is a little low coming in as per budget. The HP3 number is a larger number, 150,000 revenue sits in my head, but I don't want to be totally quoted on that. And I know the community center was a little bit, is a lighter number, a smaller number. So long story short, the revenue side, because we adjusted the budgets, are coming in reasonably well. Not any significant concern on those lines. The other side of that question is, I mean, what do the numbers look like for real going into 22 and 23? And do those rentals bounce back and, all that sort of stuff, and how do we manage those numbers on the revenue side going forward is part of that conversation, I guess, Your Worship. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Any more questions for clarity and understanding? Okay. If I ask council to turn to page 201. And as members of council and our residents know, that the environment is one of the 5 pillars that the town Stony Plain reviews and keeps a close eye on. Looking at the amount of tonnage that has been removed from the waste stream in terms of organics and blue bags, how close are we to track to 60%? I think one of the goals within our environmental sustainable footprint is to have a diversion rate of 60%. How close are we now?
Your Worship, I don't know that we've got a number in front of us that we can say specifically at this point in time. But I think, we could probably do the quick math on the numbers right in front of us, but I don't know that we have it with us right now. Yeah, and then I think you mentioned the 60%. I know that we typically hover pretty close to that, if not a bit higher, is what my memory tells me. And Your Worship, again, that's probably a good number that we can indicate, in this report right on the page you're speaking to, moving forward.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I think the numbers are really good there, and I think having that diversion rate would be beneficial too, as that's one of the goals, is to have that kind of reach that 60% diversion rate from the landfill. Okay. Any other questions for clarity and understanding? Councillor Loynes.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just in regards to page 199 with the social media, it seems like the engagement has gone down in every aspect. Is there a reason, or do we have a plan going forward as to encouraging people to interact with our social media pages, or?
Your Worship, through to Councillor Loynes and all of Council. So the comparatives that you've noted on page 199 is a direct comparison with Q3 in 2020. So those indications are a direct correlation with a decrease in engagement compared to Q3 2020. So if you look at the page prior to that, on page 198, there is a comparative analysis done of the previous quarter of Q2, and we do have higher levels of engagement that have increased over Q2. So there is a bit of summary work in terms of both what have we progressed in terms of social media engagement year to date, and then a comparative to last year in the same quarter. And so there are some factors that we can certainly point to reference some of the indications as to why there are some changes and shifts in the decrease compared to Q3, if that's what Councillor Loynes is interested in. But certainly we've seen year to date an increase in some engagement activity that's gone on since Q2 of this year.
Just to follow up,
go ahead.
Would our engagement then versus Q3 versus Q2 only be an increase because of the election? Is that what we figured, or?
Your Worship, through to Councillor Loynes, I think there's a number of factors that have been highlighted in the report. Certainly Farmers' Day triggered high. The increase in response to Farmers' Days was a big indicator of reaction. Being hosted again live, that was something that raised a flag, as well as the election itself. Were a couple of items that jumped out as ranking high in terms of our engagement activity. So both of those, I think, were strong indicators of an increase of an activity. And certainly if you reflect back on Q2 and Q3 of 2020, there was, probably the significant indicators were really ranking around COVID-19, the updates related to COVID-19. And those have, while they're still ranking quite strongly in terms of our engagement rates, they're less so in 2021 in Q3 than they were previously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for clarity and understanding? Administration, page 217, please. Just notice on the investment comparison that's provided for members of council, it seemed like there's a huge spike in the amount of investment that we had from August to September over last year. Can administration provide some understanding and clarity on that?
Your Worship, that's a very good question. We did take out the debenture for the Umbak Storm Pond, which council had approved earlier in the year. And as we haven't started paying for those bills, you see it being invested to get a return on those funds until they're needed to pay for that project.
Thank you very much. And that's a good explanation for us because maybe members of council has a little bit of understanding, but our residents that do not see the day-to-day operations or even have the understanding that there was a debenture borrowed to repair the Umbak Storm Pond. As mentioned, that work is ongoing and has not yet been invoiced and paid for yet. So instead of leaving it in the bank, it has been invested so that we can get a better return on our dollars. Any other questions, comments of the third quarter report? I see none. I'll call the question. Let me see. No, actually, I didn't have anybody written down. So, Councillor Hansard, motion for third quarter report, please.
Mr. Mayor, I move that Town Council accept the 2021 third quarter report for information.
Okay. Call the question. All those in favor? Okay. And that is carried. Okay. Moving on to 9.2. Go ahead, administration.
Thank you, Your Worship. So in front of you for approval with the numbers built into the motion is the 2022 to 2024 corporate plan. There were some changes made by council during your debate on November 8th and 9th, and we have incorporated those changes into the plan. And Your Worship, I will leave it at that brief introduction. Certainly if there's questions related to either the numbers up in the motion and or anything contained therein, we can certainly try to address those for you, Your Worship.
Okay. Thank you, administration. So members of council, I hope you had a chance to dig out your old corporate plan from a couple weeks ago. Was there any errors and omissions that we talked about that you've seen in the current presentation of the budget or the corporate plan for administration? Okay. See none, I didn't see any either, so I'm going to ask Councillor Pleshko for the motion, please.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. The Town Council approved the 2022 to 2024 corporate plan, including one, total operating revenues of $42,806,591 and expenses of $38,758,583 and unfunded amortization in the amount of $7,408,388 for 2022. Two, capital budget of $16,207,500, including $6,659,000 in contributed tangible capital assets for 2022. Three, transfers to the reserves of $4,031,164 and transfers from reserves of $3,935,033. And four, accept in principle the items identified within the plan for 2023 and 2024.
Thank you very much, Councillor Pleshko. Members of council, any questions and debate on the motion? Okay. See none. Again, I have to just congratulate and thank members of council for the conversation and good debate that we had a couple weeks ago when we dealt with the corporate plan, got the presentations from administration, and then we went about debating what was in the plan and how we make that and make those fine adjustments so that we're, again, cognizant of the taxpayers that we represent and the projects that we need to continue to approve so we can move ahead as a community. Members of council, I'll call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Moving on to 9.3. Councillor Laurie, please.
I'll move that Town Council accept the Meridian Housing Foundation information as presented and provide a letter of support for the Spruce Grove Lodge Development Project.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Laurie. Any debate and questions on this? Again, we have a presentation from the Meridian Housing Foundation. So the first request was for a letter of support, and that is where it is going to end at this point in time. Councillor Laurie?
Thank you, Your Worship, and I do appreciate the presentation that we had earlier. I'm a little bit concerned about the comment in regards to needing this letter, or we might as well just cancel the meeting with the minister. Any opportunity that you get to meet with a minister from the provincial or the federal government is an incredible opportunity for advocacy. As we heard, the application to the CMHC for the funding project, it's a low-interest loan. It's not actually a funding ask, and that's coming from a pool. And in order to apply, you need to be ready to construct within 6 months of approval. And there's no timeline for the actual approval process of that application. So in theory, the application could be placed, and in 30, 60, 90 days' time, the Meridian Housing Foundation could have an approval with the expectation that they'd be ready to build within 6 months. And we know they're not at that point. My understanding is these letters are required in order to apply. So I'm a little bit uncertain as to if Meridian Housing Foundation has a clear understanding of where they are in the project and how they are moving forward with the project. I certainly support the project. I certainly support the inclusion of more lodge housing within the tri-municipal area. I know we've talked about this project in Spruce Grove for quite some time. They've secured the land. It sounds fantastic, but I'm also a little bit disheartened that there were not options presented as well. Councillor Palechko brought up a great point as to, if the application were to not be approved, would there be a smaller project that could be done? It wasn't until I asked the question about how they were planning on potentially funding by borrowing against existing assets that it was answered. So I do move forward with this with trepidation, because I am concerned that the Meridian Housing Foundation may not have a clear path forward on this project. And I just wanted to make sure that that was publicly addressed, so as particularly for yourself as the representative of this council on that board, can bring that back to the board table and ensure that that path forward gets tidied up a bit and makes a little bit more sense when it comes back to council again.
Okay. Thank you for your comments, Councillor Laurie. I had some of those similar comments as well. We had our first board meeting as the Meridian Housing Foundation as the representative, and there's going to be a lot more questions that has to be asked before this project goes forward. But I think having that letter is just gives a little more credence to the meeting and maybe a little more support from the provincial government as well. But yes, I'll be monitoring and making sure that we're in step in line with the rest of the other municipalities that support the Meridian Foundation as we move forward. We all know that housing is a huge issue within 3 communities, and this is something that we should be watching with very, very detailed eyes and just open minds of figuring out how that we can do that together as the 3 municipalities under the Meridian Housing Foundation. Any other questions? Councillor Hanson?
Not really a question, just a comment, if I may, Your Worship. I'm happy to see people thinking long about this and hard about this. I do want to say that they absolutely have their hands tied behind their backs without letters of support. I am not a person who believes if we grant a letter of support that it means we automatically will move forward with dollars either. It's not the same at all. Very much like we sit on boards and committees. We can vote for something in a board or committee, but then come back to our council seat and actually vote against it. So it is a process that gets the ball rolling. Meridian Foundation is not new at this, and it is important to have an idea of what you might want to do with a project. That's what we got tonight, in order to even feel that we have a comfort level around giving a letter of support. But that doesn't mean we're agreeing to pay for this. The other thing is, lodges actually get operational dollars from the province, and people pay a portion of the cost of living there as well. And we're talking about how to build it. And years ago, the province got out of the business of building and owning these buildings. They don't want to own them. And as a taxpayer paying those bigger corporate tax dollars, I don't want them to own them either. It's better to me to see an entity like Meridian Foundation that's proven themselves over 70 years or 60 years actually be in the business of providing these housing units for seniors, knowing that they know how to manage and keep everybody's head above water once the items are built. If we want to see doors open for seniors, and we are way, way behind, if we started building today, we won't catch up for quite a few years trying to provide housing for seniors in our area. And by the way, this building may be located in Spruce Grove, but it's not for Spruce Grove residents. Stony Plain residents can live there. Parkland County residents can live there, just like all 3 municipalities are able to live in the units that we have here in Stony Plain. So I'm totally in support of providing their letter of support and letting them see what they can pull together in order to look good in the eyes of the federal government, who's looking at providing some dollars here at low interest rates in order for them to move forward. But if we don't provide the letter, then they can't even take the next step. And it is frustrating when you sit on a board that has to live by all these rules and regulations in the industry to have your hands tied and not be able to move forward while they're constantly looking at waiting lists of 173 people needing and wanting housing and not able to access housing.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor Hanser. Any other questions, comments, and debate on the motion? Councillor Anderson?
Just hoping someone, colleague on council, maybe can help me understand a little bit better here, but the number 173 is the number of seniors on the Meridian Housing Foundation's wait list. The St. Michael's project is 170 suites, which potentially could be more than 170 residents. And in their release, they had mentioned that they have some additional property next door that they're hoping to develop as the need arises. So with the addition of those beds expected to open spring 2023, obviously there's going to be more need, I understand that, but we're already having a big need filled in terms of a significant number of those beds and available units for our seniors. And so I don't know if I'm missing a piece here a little bit, but the need's there, absolutely. We have 170 suites coming in, plus the option of them adding some additional ones. So do we have the need currently in terms of an extra 100 units on top of those ones that are coming into the community in the next 2 years?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Councillor Anderson. So the facility that is being built by the St. Michael's Group is a replacement of the existing one that they currently have. So it's not brand new beds that are coming in. And looking at the presentation of future demands, it does continue to ramp up to over 1,000 within the next few years. Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Hansen.
Isn't St. Michael's actually a for-profit, private company providing seniors housing? The rates will not be the same as those that will be provided by a nonprofit lodge like the ones that Meridian Housing provides. So two different ball games there.
Yeah, that is correct, Councillor Hanser. So the difference, as during the presentation, it was mentioned that the Meridian Foundation is a seniors affordable, so it is at below market, and some of these self-contained units were at 30% of their income, and then others were done based on what they were allowed to to charge. I think one presentation said that one of the units you had to leave the senior with $322 for the month, and the other one was charged at 30% of their income, and then the one's at 10% below market. Thank you, Councilor Hansard. Any other questions, comments? Okay, seeing none, I will support the motion at hand. I believe that this is a good step forward in terms of allowing the Meridian Foundation to explore and expand to see what is out there and the possibilities. And as the representative on the foundation, I will be taking the comments back from our council and from Councilor Laurie to the board table in terms of what other projects could be done and how we can best utilize the resources that we do have currently. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Okay, and that's carried. Okay, moving on to council information and council discussion. So this is the time that I will allow members of council to update council on activities that are happening throughout your boards and commissions or other things that might be happening in the community, or any questions to be passed along or concerns to administration from our residents. Councillor Anderson, I'll start with you.
No, I have nothing in addition for today.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hansard?
Yes, Your Worship. I received a phone call today from Mrs. Seibel in Homesteads. She doesn't access computer, doesn't know how to check what the rotation for snow removal is in her community. She's lived here for 8 years and was under the impression that she's always been at the bottom of the snow cleaning list. When I explained to her that would be impossible because I was at the bottom of the list not that long ago. She seemed to be accepting of that, but she wanted to let council know that with the ice conditions and the amount of snow on the road, her neighbor pulled out into a street to allow a contractor or someone back in, and he got out of his car and fell and broke his hip and slid up under his vehicle. And this would be in the vicinity of units 32, 31, 32, 33. He parked in front of her house, and she was a bit distressed when that had happened because emergency services, I believe, had come to the aid of this gentleman. So she was calling to say, could we please, in seniors areas, try to be quicker about removing snow. I know that can't happen. We still have obligations to do this in an orderly way, but just thought I would bring it up.
Okay. Thank you for passing it along, yes, and that's a kind of a sad story. In terms of knowing when their subdivisions is up for snow removal, usually the no parking signs come up 24 hours before, if she has no social media. So if she sees a sign out there, then that's probably when it's coming within the next day or so.
Okay.
Deputy Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. And Councillor Anderson, I'm surprised you didn't inform us about the smile cookies that we all got to work. I did have a great opportunity to partake in getting to volunteer for that at the local Tim Hortons over by the Boston Pizza. I enjoyed it very much. One lady said to me, "What a great smile." And I said, "Well, that's really interesting because I have a mask on." So, but she said, "Well, you seem really chipper." So, but what else? No, I'm just going to hog the airtime here. Had a great discussion with a number of our Filipino community that works there. Wonderful people. And I had a great discussion about Manny Pacquiao running for president there. A lot more there, I was informed. Anyhow, so I did appreciate that opportunity. I understand we did really good.
The Saturday night, and Tim Hortons had projected 10,000, so they were 6,000 above what they had hoped for. So they're very excited about the results there.
So, yes, excellent, exactly. So I just thought I'd share that. And it's great.
Thank you very much for those comments and that information, Councillor Anderson. So, Packy for that's a president.
So the current Duterte's daughter is running on the opposite ticket of her father, apparently. So this is quite a thing. Anyhow.
That's interesting. Thank you for that information. Councilor Pletchko?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So I'll take up a little more time than Eric tonight. I think I've got a few more things that I'd like to chat about. First off, Range Road 12, which is a common theme for me to be brought forward. Many calls due to the rain. I just encourage our Public Works Department to not forget that Range Road 12, just because it's a gravel road, the hill on the north side of the road, on the south side of the road that goes towards the tracks, the minute it rains is a Toboggan Hill. And we've had many people run that. I've had many people tell me they've run that, and I've been one of them as well as myself the last little bit. That hill is just absolutely treacherous when it gets a tiny bit of rain. So if we could have Public Works watch that. The other thing that I've had a lot of concern from is our local residents regarding our downtown light up. And I'm just wondering if there's a way that we can clarify what the light up really truly means for our community. It's an event that many people come to, and I understand that with COVID there was some rules in place. But most communities have opened up their community to some form of people back downtown. And I've had multiple calls regarding us not actually having, and the misconception of what it is. Are we open for business for people to come downtown? Is there hot chocolate? Is there no hot chocolate? What time is the tree lighting up? And it's just the overall perception of what it is. And you can read into that description that is put on our website multiple ways. So I'm just wondering if we can clarify tonight some way so that people know that it's going to happen between 6 and 9 o'clock. There's going to be hot chocolate. The downtown is open for people and they can come down there.
Thank you. Go ahead, Administration.
Yeah. Your Worship, through to Council Pletchko, all of Council. So Wednesday evening, the 1st of December, the Christmas celebration will start in the town of Stony Plain. So the Christmas tree will be lit and Rotary Park will also be lit at 6 o'clock. The countdown is not what we traditionally have with Santa, fire department, ladder truck, mayor countdown. It's a virtual countdown. The roads will be blocked to traffic in the downtown core between 6 and 9 p.m. That's to allow a safe environment for people to enjoy the downtown shopping. There are several stores staying open in the downtown core until 9 p.m. They are offering their own treats and beverages throughout the evening that people can enjoy. We are adding a DJ to the downtown core to provide some festive atmosphere to the downtown core. We continue to work with vendors to try and provide some additional attractions to the downtown core. A lot of people have backed out because of COVID-19. There's still public health orders in play right now. There's still a distancing requirement. So we're certainly mindful of that. We do have the REP program at our indoor facilities, and we're trying to make sure that we're very consistent in terms of how we approach the public health orders in both an outdoor and indoor environment in Stony Plain. The website is the best opportunity for you to continue to be up to date on exactly what's happening with respect to the event, but the DJ for sure it will happen between 6 and 9. The lights will go on at 6 o'clock. There are stores that will be open for shopping and providing treats to shoppers in the downtown core. And we continue to get confirmation from other groups as early as Friday last week with respect to what they would like to do, going through some approval processes. So it's a moving target. It's not something that we typically do. Usually that event we know well in advance what is happening, but certainly the impacts of COVID-19 and people's comfort levels are impacting our ability to confirm with certainty on several things.
So thank you for that. So just to rephrase that a little bit, so what it is the streets are open to our residents to come downtown, not as a town function, but as a town organized a bit of an event where we're going to turn the lights on. The store owners will be able to provide them with whatever goodies they choose to do with, and it's come as you will and go as you will, and there may be additional things that come along. So thanks for the clarification, because people, a lot of the conversation I've been having is, do we come? Can we come? you know, what's in play, what's not in play, you know, so I think you've clarified that, so I really appreciate that. And one other thing, I do want to touch on the Smile Cookie campaign. Actually, I want to touch on the Kinsman campaign. I've had the opportunity to talk to Ed Burney from the Kinsman on a number of occasions regarding that. They're still short toys. The cash flow, I think, is not a bad situation for them, but the toy situation is a little bit, and they're hoping that over the next couple of weekends, which is at the Red Apple, that they get to the amount of toys that they need. But as of when I talked to him on Sunday, they were still short substantially on toys. Ed is always hopeful that our community comes through, and our community does always come through. So if there's any way we can encourage our community to come out and support the local organization, I understand that the ask from our community is substantially higher, while our tri-region, I guess, is substantially higher than it has been in the past. So anything that anybody can do to help the Kinsmen out would be great.
Thank you for those comments. Anything else?
I'm good, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Loynes.
Thank you. I had the privilege of talking with one of our residents, Betty Lalonde, on several different occasions since the snowfall, and she did email in a couple of concerns that I'll just read off. One of them happened to be that along 52nd Ave and Highway 779 to downtown, the curb ramps are in poor condition and are not wide enough to accommodate wheelchairs or mobility scooters, and some of the corners don't even have curb ramps. Her second concern was downtown around the signage on the sidewalks that many of the businesses are putting out are actually blocking the sidewalk. Is there going to be a policy, or is there one in place as to where the signs are allowed to be located? Her third concern was the handicap parking along 50th Street. The area of unfolding vehicles is not wide enough and is on the wrong side of the vehicles. Her fourth one was ATS vehicles cannot allow their passengers to leave their vehicles on Main Street because of the insufficient space to launch their ramps, and many times they're offloading in the back alley or they're blocking a second parking stall if it's available. And her fifth concern was sidewalk snow clearing around the public parking lots. In her opinion, is not done quick enough as for the walking paths. Now, we know that we got a lot of snow in a very short amount of time, as well as the freezing rain. Public Works was out there, which we do appreciate, but I just wanted to bring her concerns forward, as they have been mentioned as well by several other residents. So there's that, as well as some concerns were brought up today. Through Greybrier, there was no parking signs put up because they were clearing the snow or cleaning the streets, and several of the vehicles were still left there all day, resulting in the streets not being cleared sufficiently. The residents are curious as to what happens when these cars do not move on no parking signs.
Thank you, Councillor Loynes. So if you can forward that email letter to administration. And in terms of, actually this is a good topic, in terms of snow removal, if no parking signs, I think council's had that debate quite a few times. And where are we in terms of maybe moving to the next steps of enforcement?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. So maybe I'll just comment a bit too on the questions and concerns raised on accessibility. So, Your Worship, yeah, there's no question if there was an accessibility audit done on design and construction and so on across the town, whether specifically in downtown areas or 779 to Glen Hall, if you use that as an area, or other parts of the community for sure, there would be specific places where there aren't curb ramps, there are cracked concrete here or there that cause challenges for numerous different people within the community, whether however that accessibility may affect them specifically. So, Your Worship, just having said that, that's part of the ongoing operational budgets. It's part of the overall walkability planning that we do, and we try to watch for that stuff and make those changes where needed and so on. But clearly, there's work to be done, and frankly, there probably always will be to a degree to make changes and alter some of the built environment as needed. So, you know, we always appreciate to hear the specific concerns so that we can go out and look at them or see if they are on a list or not, and I mean all of that sort of stuff. So that's important for administration to hear about. Yeah, you know, overall snow removal, ice removal, again, without question, you know, you get the rain. I was one of the people that was out there at like 6 a.m. going to get my Starbucks fix early on in the morning, and it was unbelievable if you were out at that point in time. It was unbelievable, you know, how that rain had affected the roads for the first few hours. I think by noon, I think ourselves, Spruce Grove, I was actually having to go into the city that day, and the sanding trucks were out and they were putting a dent in it, so to speak. But still some work there. And I think, although I don't know for sure, I think the other thing that's important to note, both you know, to the community, but also as a kudos to our staff. You know, I think we're about 2 weeks out from that first heavy snowfall, and by my own calculation, I think we're going to be almost complete the full town removal, you know, within the next few days. So, although there's always specific areas that, you know, require specific response, you know, on the big side of it, that's a pretty good. I think that's a pretty solid response overall to a fairly significant snowfall early on in the year. So again, just I guess, Your Worship, a few comments that way. And I'll stop there and just ask for a reminder of the second question that I was asked to talk to.
No parking on snow removal.
No parking on snow removal, yes. Your Worship, certainly, you know, I mean, I know my time, I believe probably yours, Your Worship, you know, there's always been some question about the level or the you know, I mean, how soon, how fast we go on whether it's enforcement on removals or towing or so on and so forth. Our bylaws generally allow for that to happen. Typically, you know, past practice for quite some time is, you know, we get the notices out there. We do see pretty good compliance by the majority of the community, I believe. But, you know, I mean, every year that goes by, Your Worship, I know that becomes more of a debate within the community. You know, if I have advice at this point in time, that's a pretty difficult change to make in the middle, perhaps, of a winter season, but certainly something that I know, Your Worship, I believe I heard you say that it's been brought up before and talked about and so on. And you know, I mean, if I could provide some advice there, I think that's something that council should have another conversation about and be comfortable with whatever direction you choose to go for, you know, the next 2 or 3 years or what have you. And we can certainly provide some input and, you know, commentary and numbers and so on and so forth on that. But I'll stop there, Your Worship. You know, I mean, that's my perspective on it, and can certainly answer any other questions or provide any other comment that's needed.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Loyens, we can have that conversation a little bit later on as well. As the town manager mentioned, as we continue to grow as a community, these additional issues continue to prop up and get worse and worse. So as the general manager mentioned and the town manager, basically there is good compliance. It's those one-offs and few people that, or certain areas that do not, is how do we deal with them? And that's the issue that we will continue to debate with and kind of have that conversation. So we'll can, as a council, be, I don't know, guess understand the logic behind it and why we're going to do something. Anything else, Councilor Loyens? Councilor Laurie?
Thank you, Your Worship. A couple of things here tonight. I'll actually start to appreciate Councillor Hansard bringing up the challenge in the homesteads. Living near that area, unfortunately, this year is no different than many other years where the homesteads has a contractor for the snow removal from their driveways, and the contractor likes to point his snowblower right into the road. And so unfortunately, as we know, that is not permitted. However, we do see it happening in many areas such as that and many other areas in town, which just adds to the complexity of and the challenge of getting around the roads. And in particular in that subdivision, being that it is a seniors area, I have experienced over my 12 years there a lot of struggle. Due to that, I know it has been raised many, many times with their contractor directly. I know the town is aware of it, and unfortunately, it does not seem that that behavior changes. So certainly, if you are talking to that resident again, I'll provide them with that feedback that they can bring back to their condo association board, because that practice should have stopped long ago. You do bring up a great point, though, in regards to the signage, and as we've heard on different conversation here, it's a topic I've brought up before, and it's a topic I'll continue to bring up. Putting signs into the neighborhoods that are being cleared a little over 12 hours before clearing to occur is not sufficient. It is not enough notice. People work out of town. Some people don't leave their houses. I believe we're the bottom of the list in my subdivision, and our signs went up at about 3 o'clock this afternoon. Well, if somebody's already in their house or if somebody's out of town this evening, they will not see that. They will not know that. And so if you look in many communities around, they put up signs out front of the community entrances, even for the entire season. And they put date ranges on those signs. So it might not say, we will be in your subdivision on the 30th, but it may say, we will be in your subdivision between the 27th and the 1st. And that allows people the opportunity to have a little bit more advanced notice and allows us that opportunity to get those vehicles moved more often. If you've ever had the pleasure of watching the grader go down some of our roads, you will see how incredibly skilled some of our operators are with the amount of vehicles that are left on the streets, and I can truly appreciate their skill, but I'm guessing that makes their job significantly tougher, which also makes it take significantly longer. So when we continue to talk about service levels, and we continue to talk about wanting to get our roads cleared quicker, having something in place that will give people the opportunity to move their vehicles with a little bit more of a lead time, and then also having something in place for those who do not move their vehicles, I think is long overdue in the community. I do just want to say, I mean, it's been a while since we've actually had a council meeting with an input session, so obviously I want to thank administration and fellow council for all the time we've spent in our significant orientation and training opportunities that we've had over the last several weeks. I'm sure for those just joining council this term and those returning, it definitely is like drinking from the fire hose, and I want to express my appreciation for your attendance and attention at all those sessions, because it truly is something that will allow us to function incredibly well as a council together. I wanted to take the opportunity to highlight, I had the Smile Cookie campaign down as well as the Kinsman program, as well as our own town Toys for Tickets program in support of the Kinsman. We understand how great that need is in our community, and we truly have an organization second to none in the Kinsman that supports that need in our community. And so I love nothing more than to see the support that is offered to them and encourage all of our residents as well as council to continue supporting that, not only this year, but in years to come. Some great opportunities that we've had lately. I had the opportunity to tour the 3 Robins building with Mayor Choi and Councillor Meyer. Unfortunately, I believe Councillor Hansard and Councillor Plechko were supposed to join us, but were unable to. But we were one of their first tours through the building. They're kicking it off, trying to get a little bit more awareness out there. Absolutely fantastic facility with some great amenities for those looking for a little bit of a change in their living situation, looking to downsize, looking to go somewhere that's a little bit easier living for them. And not only that, but I can't remember the words Councillor Meyer used, but it was in regards to the community that they've created there. And it is an absolute wonderful atmosphere and community that they've created there, and I'm very encouraged after that tour at what they're able to provide and what that's going to do for not only the seniors in our community, but even just for our downtown core. I had the opportunity to attend a session with our MP, Mr. Dane Lloyd, at Town Hall the other evening, which was great and informative, as well as a minister meeting with Councillor Hansard and Mayor Choi, meeting with Minister Pon at our annual AUMA conference. Again, great opportunities for us to advocate to other levels of government for the town of Stony Plain. As well, our own interdepartment, we have some fantastic sessions going on right now through community and social development on our Let's Talk Poverty sessions. I know several council members have attended those. There's another one coming up tomorrow afternoon, and so I do encourage all councillors who have availability in their schedule to attend those sessions. It's great to hear some of the brainstorming that's going on in those sessions and how that's going to continue to influence our plan moving forward. In respect to boards and committees, the EMTSC has completed their organizational meeting. I'm very happy to announce I've been elected as the chair of the Audit and Finance Committee again. And we are meeting this week to review the draft budget that was presented to the board for 2022, which will be approved at our next board meeting, fingers crossed, which I'm happy to report does not include any additional ask from the municipality on either the operating or the capital side for the 2022 budget year. So That is everything I have on my list this evening, Your Worship. Thank you very much for the opportunity to get that all out there.
Thank you, Councillor Laurie, and thank you, members of council, for providing the updates. Just a few here to touch on. Again, mentioned was the AUMA conference, which is now, it was rebranded, now it's called Alberta Municipalities, and it was great to see those that were able to come to network and learn from the sessions and also learn from other elected officials on there. As mentioned, we also had an opportunity to lobby and advocate for the town of Stony Plain. We had the opportunity to have a meeting with the Minister of Community and Social Services and also the Minister of Seniors Housing. So again, great work. Again, the Smile Cookies is excellent. Good job, everyone. And thank you for participating. As mentioned, it does go to a great cause that supports the Kinsman's Christmas Hamper. And speaking of the Kinsman Hamper, Councillor Fletcher said that there is a need for toys. So on December 11th, that is Saturday, December 11th, the Red Apple is donating 10% from every purchase to the Kinsman Christmas Hamper. So if you're looking at purchasing some toys to donate, this is kind of a win-win situation. So if you mark December 11th, purchase some toys, you get 10% back to it, and you also get to donate some toys to the program as well. So excellent. And in terms of the virtual lighting, so December 1st, it is open in the community from 6 to 9. There's a lot of activities happening downtown. We're just not doing a live countdown. As mentioned by the general manager, there is spacing requirements and restrictions in place. And typically we have about 3,000 to 4,000 people gathered around the tree for the light up. We definitely cannot ensure and have enough enforcement officers to make sure everybody's 2 meters apart. That's not part of the same family cohort. So in terms of just inviting people down to enjoy the light up, and also, as well, the Rotary Park will be lit up at the same time as well. So there's lots of lights there, so please enjoy that as well. We can take the opportunity. And what else? Oh, and then on behalf of myself and the residents, definitely thank you to our staff for the work that they've done in terms of snow clearing. Every system is not perfect, but with the amount of snow that we had over Monday and Tuesday night and the conditions that we had, our crews did an excellent job. As mentioned, we do have a priority list that we take care of, and we got to them right away. And based on the amount of snow and the packs and the kind of the packed snow through the wind, our staff did really well because we had the entire priority roads cleared within a week, and we started snow clearing on December 23rd. And as mentioned by the town manager, we'll be finished our residential clearing by the end of this week. And if you follow the City Spruce Grove news, they're just starting residential snow removing today, a week later than the town of Stony Plain. So even though they have 3 times the amount of staff and everything else, our crews do an excellent job. I'm pretty sure that they get a lot of calls about one-off incidents and why my road isn't done first. And that's one of my biggest complaints. As the mayor, I should have my road done first each and every time. I don't know why that hasn't happened yet. And 10 years as the mayor, that still hasn't happened. So maybe one of these times it does happen. But kidding aside, the program we have and the policy that we have in place is to ensure that all residents get a fair and equal snow removal opportunity. So you're not always going to be first, you're not always going to be last, but the process does work. We just need to be patient. And as Councillor Laurie mentioned, if we see neighbors and friends, ask them please do not blow the snow onto the streets because that just adds to the mayhem and the extra congestion that we'll have to deal with later on. Okay. With that, that's all I have. So thank you very much, administration, for providing the packages for council to read, and definitely with the fees and services and utility bylaw to support the corporate plan. Members of council, thank you for reading the packages and bringing your conversations and comments to the council table. With that, we're adjourned.